Yeah, exactly. All right. I'm going to add you to the thing here. Hold up. Da, da, da. Good morning, everyone. We are live, Jude, just so you know. That's why I counted you in. So welcome to live coaching.
Yay!
We'll wait a few minutes to see if anybody shows up or all that good stuff, and then we'll jump into it. Normally I have like music and whatever, but we're a little rushed today, so it will be what it will be. But I'm very excited. What?
Okay, go ahead. I put in my group, like, hey, I'm really excited. This is like an industry leader that I really look up to, blah, blah, blah. I'm just a nervous Nelly over here. So now I'm getting all these texts like, you're going to do great, honey. Can we watch it? I'm like, no, I'm sorry. You can't watch it. I don't,
Well, it will be on my, well, if you want them to watch it, it will be on my YouTube later on.
Yeah.
So,
oh, perfect.
Yeah, so if you want to share, you totally can that way. It depends what we end up talking about, I guess.
Yeah. If I want them to see it.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. So fill me in, as well as like I have your write-up and stuff like that, but fill everyone else in, kind of give them kind of an insight as to what you're wanting to work through on today's call, like what is the context surrounding it, and how can I help you, essentially.
Well, and it was funny because I was like, I knew everything that I wrote, the general gist of everything that I wrote, but I don't have a copy of everything that I wrote. And I was like, oh, that's kind of weird that I don't know exactly what I like signed up for, So the general gist, I have a pretty nice following and a great community. And I just want to take us deeper. I want to take us further. A lot of what we do is obviously like fun games and engagement and get to know each other kind of stuff, which all has its place. And I think it's grown to help a lot of folks get comfortable with where they are in the space that we have together. But I also noticed that when we do things like, okay, show me your favorite photo of yourself. I don't care if it is so photoshopped that you hardly look like yourself, or if it's you sitting on the floor right now, whichever one makes you look at it and feel like, yes, I look awesome. I feel awesome. We have so many responses, and then we have people all over the place being like, oh my gosh, I love that shirt. Oh, you look like you have light around you, blah, blah, blah. And people really connect with that. So I love that. Yesterday, I was really excited. We did, in the morning, I just randomly posted one that was like, I want you to tell me a win. It doesn't have to be a big one. It doesn't have to be something that you're telling everybody about. I just want to hear stuff. And we got everything from I've been sober for 2 months to I just paid off a credit card to, I took control of my mental health and started seeing a therapist, and I've been really worried and haven't told anybody about it. But I went back and looked at it this morning to let, we've been nurturing those and like, this is awesome, keep it up, whatever. And we're hundreds of comments in because all of these people just needed a space to get to be proud of themselves. And it was so cool. So I'm opening a new studio in the small city that I live in. And I really feel like, and I have for a while, that this is like the big push for me. So this new space is right in the heart of the Arts District. And it's a part of town that they've been working really hard over the past decade to like bring back. I'm from Canton, Ohio, and it was kind of a dying city. So they invested a lot into the Arts District and the Innovation District. So getting to be part of that, and I've always had like this weird extreme love for my city. So getting to like physically be part of it as well is huge for me. So I feel like this is my shot to be like, we're here, we're going to change some lives.
That's amazing. That sounds awesome. So what can I help you with today? Is it brainstorming different ideas on how you can utilize your studio to create that kind of community, or yeah.
I would love to think through ideas of way to connect. I would love to think through ideas of how to just get the folks in my group a little bit closer and open up some of those conversations. There are tons of people who comment on all of the like fluff and fun stuff. And then there's kind of a core group that feels comfortable and safe enough connecting on those deeper ones. And I notice every time we go just a little bit further and there's one or two extra people who are like willing to get in. But just, you know, how do I nurture that and help people know that this is their spot?
Yeah, I think honestly, the number one thing that helped me with that community kind of vibe is literally consistency and understanding that it isn't like not everyone's gonna be like, "Ooh, like here's all my shit," you know. And understanding that every time one person shares, that encourages somebody else to get closer to sharing. And so I think it is hard to have patience around that aspect of it as a community leader. Be like, I just want them to like talk. You know, like, come on, like we're just having a discussion. So you may want to, I don't know if you're part of, I'm not on Clubhouse, the Clubhouse app by any means, but if you are, that sounds like that would be a good way to get that initial core like talking, because I don't know what your rules are right now in terms of COVID, or like if you can do group things in person. Are you able to do events and stuff like that?
We are, and at my last studio, we did a lot of events. We ended up having to cancel the last one because it was the week that Ohio got shut down. So that was a little bit disappointing. We can do events. We're able to open, I think we're at a third capacity, but the studio itself is almost 3,000 square feet. So there's enough room to spread out and have, you know, if it was more of an open house style, which I have just lists upon lists of fun things for everyone to do together to get to know each other. So I'm kind of just waiting for the space to be ready so that I can be like, come see me, come be my friend.
Yeah, and I really think like that was one of the things that definitely helped me build my community up when I first started Boudoir, was just like arranging all these like stupid events. Like, and I don't mean that they were stupid, but just like I would have an idea and I'm like, somebody's going to be interested to come in and talk about this.
Yes.
I did find an easy way to get people to do the harder work, though, to talk about the deeper stuff, was to do my empowerment photo projects. So that's where I focused on a topic that I was interested in, like digging deeper on. But then I knew, well, like my experience is only one, so I wanted to pull from my people.
Yeah.
So, but to get them to be like, hey, come in and talk about your trauma, like that doesn't sound as exciting. As opposed to, hey, I'm doing this project, this photo project, where you can have them together or separately. Like a group project, and say, here's what it entails. This is what it would require from you, is sharing your story, and then we will share these in the group. And so doing those, I was doing those about once a month, and then eventually just once a quarter because I got busy. But by doing that kind of work, like me taking the initiative to do that harder, like to talk about the harder stuff with people, and basically being like, pour your shit on me. like I'll take it. I'll take all that like terrible stories you have. But it made that act, like brought in the people that were not very much, they had a harder time sharing online. They felt way more comfortable being in person, because then they were just able to like get it out. Whereas online is permanent, essentially. Like that's where people are at, right? So when it comes to telling those deeper stories or sharing parts of ourselves, or even if it's like, oh, tell us about your first sexual experience, like if that goes on the internet, it probably is there forever, and it has the chance to be removed from the internet. So, or not removed from the internet, but from your group.
Yes.
If people are twats, you know what I mean? Which they're not, but you never know what can happen. So I think people go in with that fear online. So getting things offline is really powerful, and you're going to have an amazing space. It sounds like, to do that. But I would say figure out what are the deeper topics that you think you would like to approach with them, and then figure out a way to transition that into, if I had to tell the story about this type of trauma, body image issue, whatever, what would that look like in photographic form?
Okay.
And then around that, so you do the project, let's say it's an ongoing year-long project. We'll just say like, you get people just sign up and they show up for these photos and tell you their stories. At the end of the year, you could have a gallery showing because you have the space for it.
Yeah.
Photos their stories. Those people will show up because their photos are part of the display, but then they will also bring their friends and their family and the people they trust the most. But also the people that maybe didn't feel like they could share will also come in. They'll get to see your space, obviously, great. They will get to connect with other women that have had that experience, or other people that have had that experience. And then that's how it builds, I think, is like doing things like that. Like, it's chipping away at those things, but it does require the neophytes, the people that are like, yeah, I'm excited, it's something new, and I just want to show up and do the thing to encourage others. But then it also gives you a beautiful body of work to tell actual stories, instead of just like, look how sexy you look, right? It's like we created this project. The one that I did that was probably one of the most impactful for me was about eating disorders.
Okay.
Where, because I was like, I had orthorexia, but like people that really struggled in their younger years. So basically it was like individual portrait sessions, but I had them fill out a questionnaire. It was like, if you could assign your eating disorder with a color, what color would you choose? If you, like, what part of your body did you focus on for when you were going through that? And all these different questions that I thought would help me create an image of what their experience with that eating disorder looked like. So at the end of it, I had all these different people, and then I used flowers in the colors that they decided on, and put the flowers on the parts of their bodies that they would look to let them know they were successful. And so it's just like doing stuff like that I'm like, how can I take what you're telling me and make it into a visual representation? And that alone helped people, they were able to talk about something that was so terrifying, and they probably wouldn't talk about that online as in depth. And for some people, it's even just having specific questions. Like, have you ever been asked, like, oh, if you suffer depression, like, what color would you assign your depression? You know, like, nobody asks those, like, I don't think, not a lot of people ask those questions. And I think it's a different way to give people a different perspective on these things that they feel like depression.
Yeah. I think something that is a theme through our group is unseen insecurities, and the idea that we all have much more in common than we realize. Because sometimes we even happen into those conversations if it's a, hey, what's everybody working on? Like a more of a goal setting, it's common to see like, well, I've been working really hard on working out every day, but I'm just so weighed down and stressed out that I don't feel like I can work out. And then there are 6 folks coming to their rescue saying like, hey, I feel like that too, blah, 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 you're not alone, and are giving them ideas for how they can work out. Or, when I don't feel like I can work out, I do yoga instead. So I'm still getting that body strength, but I'm not making myself go to the gym, whatever. So maybe something around that, and, having people talk about those unseen insecurities, and, like, oh, you would never know that my biggest insecurity is my acne. And I've talked about that in the group, and I've shown side-by-side photos of, here's a fully unretouched photo of me, which makes me cringe. But when we do selfie challenges in the group, people always comment on how much they love my skin. And I'm like, what are you crazy people looking at? Because the first thing I see in any photo is all of my acne. So just kind of those things. And everybody's like, oh, I never would have noticed it on you. I always feel like that. So kind of going a little bit deeper, we are so much more similar and have those same shared insecurities, but we don't talk about them. So nobody knows that they're not alone.
I just totally had a visualization of how that would look in terms of a photo project. If you photograph people and they're like, oh, I don't like my tum or whatever it is. If you like literally cut out that part of their body, so it was like a hole wherever the piece was. So then you would have this collection of all these bodies with missing pieces. Right? Like, I don't know what my brain came up with, and I think it would be really cool to because I think seeing it all together, because like you said, if one person's like, oh, I don't like my skin or my skin texture or whatever, all of a sudden you remove one person's cheek and then you remove somebody else's cheek and somebody else's, then they will automatically feel a connection to those people, because they're like, you also feel that way, and I never would have thought that
Yes.
that way, right? So that like seeing the visual representation of that,
Mhm.
yeah, I think if you have the Photoshop skills to make that happen, I think that would be really cool.
Yeah, I like Photoshop and I like to test myself. So that's a good excuse for me to push my skills too.
Yeah, I think what you would like, the way that I would do it, just if you do end up doing this, is like shoot everything on a seamless backdrop or like a white wall or whatever. And then so take a picture of the wall before you take a picture of the person. And then that way you have the light is the same as when you take the picture of the person.
Yes.
And then that way you just kind of like cut it out and then put the original photo. So I would use a tripod to do it. So that way the framing, the composition is the same whether the person's there or not. So then you just layer mask it, remove the piece of the body, and then you'll see. Do you know how to layer mask? Yeah.
That's
so then
amazing.
you just cut out the piece with the person, and then you will see the background of what it actually looked like in that moment you took the photo.
Oh, I love that.
But I think like when you talked about unseen, I think that's a good way to do it, because it's like you're taking these things that they do exist on you. But what if we were, but even that speaks even further to like, what if you didn't have that part of you? Like, this is what you would look like if we took away these parts of you. Like, you look a little bit like Swiss cheese, a bit like, you know?
Well, and even I've had ladies tell me like, oh, I hate hearing myself. You know, I wouldn't want to do a live because I hate my voice. So it's, you know, having them pose like this or something and then removing part of their neck or, you know, like maybe covering their lips or something like that, you know. So I think that gives me an opportunity to be a little bit more creative, just, you know, more abstract with the thing that they are having an insecurity with as well.
I think it would be a really powerful project to do. So we got one. Perfect.
Love it.
But yeah, it's like doing stuff like that when you can see, like, and that's where groups are fantastic. I always said like my group and my community was like my data pool. Like I didn't realize it at the beginning, but then as I was like creating Body Image Bootcamp, and like it all came out of like the people that were in my community saying the same thing. And my brain is very strategic, so it could see the trends. And I do that even with this group, the Everybody's group. I'm like, okay, like 10 people have asked the same fucking question. Clearly we need education on this thing, right? But it's the same thing that I did with boudoir and that. And one other thing that I did that was really impactful, it was a little exhausting, but I also created, it was almost like a support group where people, like, where I said, hey, I have some questions to ask about body image. This is me sourcing data. But ultimately what it ended up doing, and I did this about 4 times in the same year to like just to get different people in, but we would sit around, I'd have like 8 questions essentially, because if you have like 5+ people, like 5 questions will take you hours. You know, if you give everyone a chance to talk. And that's basically what I did, was I would ask a question and then everyone would go around and tell their story about how they interpreted the question. And for me, I was like, yeah, cool, notes. But for them, it was like going to a support group.
Yeah, it sounds cathartic.
Their stuff and this, like, and that's why I always love, like, a studio space is great, because I always tell people it's like, this is where you dump all your shit and then you get to go home. Like, leave your baggage with me, I'll take care of it, and then you get to go home without it. Like, so creating that, fostering that kind of experience for people, I think allows them to feel safer online as well, as to say, you know what, if you're not comfortable with this yet, you can come do it in person and really just like sit with other people. And I'm just going to ask you questions. So that's where I will say, as a facilitator of a support group or anything like that, and make sure you don't say it's not therapy, it's not like anything like that, but it is just like for us to come together to talk. And for you to maintain very neutral, because it's very like, you'll hear a lot of stories of not like super trauma, super you know, lots of things. And what can end up happening is if you crumble, then you are let everyone else support everyone else. And
Okay.
I know that sounds a little ridiculous, because it's like, what? No, like I have to be, no. Your job is to facilitate, which means you are responsible for bringing the people together to support each other.
Yes.
My job is to simply ask the questions and continue asking questions to help other people spark their conversation with each other. And so like when you have somebody, like I have one person that like released a lot of very traumatic events that were currently happening in her life. And afterwards, my assistant was with me, and she was like, oh my God, we need to like do something. We need to call the cops for her. And I was like, no, that is not our place. Our place is to give her a place to come, so that way when she leaves, she has a little more confidence when she goes back into that fire. Like, it is not my place to like cause more of a problem at home, you know what I mean? But instead, it's like to be there and say, you know what, here's what I'm going to do is I'm going to build you up, so when you go back, you're a little bit stronger than you were when you came into this room. And that's all. That's my job. My job is not to fix them. My job is not to do any of that. It's very important to make sure.
I feel like I have to put my hands somewhere else.
Yeah, I'm like when they tell like really deep stories, I'm like, don't cry, look around, let everyone else cry and hug. And the girls that have come to, and I say girls or women that have come to Body Image Boot Camp can attest to this, is like, I will make them responsible for each other. If you're a hugger, like at the beginning, I always say, who's the huggers? And so they put up their hands. If you don't want to be hugged, let people know, like start it off that way. So there is kind of this, so they know who to go for, or else they can ask like, is it okay if I hug you? Can you give me a hug right now? And so that way it is not our job. Our job is just to be there, to facilitate these discussions and not have the answers, but rather just ask the questions. So that's why I tell people, if they're doing support groupy type things, is to do it in that way, and have a list of resources available. So, which I think is powerful. This is something that I learned from my mom, who is an HR director. She's like, it's not your job to do the work. It is your job to give them the resources for when they're ready to call the cops or do whatever. So I would recommend talking to like a trauma specialist, like somebody that deals with this, and saying like, okay, in the event that this happens, what steps do I take? And they will provide you with the skills that you need, as well as the resources to provide the person. So that way, when the person is ready to do that work, then they will do that. But that's the best way to do that.
Over the holiday season, our group did a fundraising project for our local rape crisis center. So that was very, very powerful. And, you know, we heard a lot of stories and a lot of like, this is why it matters to me. I shared my own to kick off the whole fundraising. So, you know, everybody was like, thank you for being willing to say those things and to share those things, because I would not have had you not. And then we ended up having the program director of the Rape Crisis Center come in, and she joined the group, talked to all of us, told us, you know, how we were helping. And obviously we looked around for a while to see if we could find something like physical, you know, like get your body into an active service. And right now there's just not a lot of opportunity for that. So we were like, all right, money is what we can help with right now. So our group was able to raise $600 to help women get back to therapy and back, because they noted that one of the biggest stops to women going to their counseling was gas money, and that they didn't have a means to get there. So we purchased gas cards for them to get to and from. So I know that helped a lot of people in the group, you know, just through helping others as well.
Well, yeah, and like that is a huge way to bond, obviously, as a group as well. I think Bree Brown also, she's in the Everybody's group here. Her group did like a huge fundraising event as well, and I think it's like super powerful when they see themselves helping. Like, it actually is scientifically proven that the more you get, like the more you do for others, the happier you will be, the more fulfillment you will actually experience in your life. So that's why that's the other thing that I used to do when I still do it. I'm not shooting right now because of lockdown, but when I donate $30 to our Fort Garry Women's Resource Center. So every session fee, so that way on my website, it would say, like, every time you do something for yourself, you are actually doing it for someone else. Like, you were inspiring.
Ooh, I love that.
And I had clients book me because they had utilized the services from the Fort Garry Women's Resource Center previously before, and they had gotten their life changed around or whatever. And then they were like, because you did this, I knew you were the person to come to. Like, and so I think it's like this, like, just given and given and given, which I think is super powerful. And the fact that you role model it is super important. And you did do that, which is great. It's one thing to ask people to dump all their shit, right? But it's another, like, that's why, like, in the writing workshop, that's what I'm talking about with them right now, is the importance of, the more vulnerable you can be, the better it is for your clients. Like, if you want them to be vulnerable, you need to share yourself. There's no way around that kind of relationship. It's not fair. Of course, you'll have your chatty Cathys that just, like, love to share their stories, like, regardless. But for most people, they need to know that it's like, you give a secret, I give a secret. You know, it's like a transaction. And if you want to foster that, then it always has to start at the top, which is with the community leader, which is yourself. And it looks like you're already doing that, which is fantastic. So just thinking of different ways that you can do that, but even hosting events, I would say, once you can, where you bring in somebody from the Rape Crisis Center, or just do like a trade showy type thing, where you have, like, different things that help empower people. So you could bring that person, like, that group in, but you could also have, like, a self-defense seminar, which is really fun. And you could have, like, because you have all the space, you definitely could do something like that. You could go pole dancing together. Like, there's so many, like, you could do the fun stuff, but you could also do the stuff, like, look around for things that are empowering. And I think one thing that I had tried to do before I just was like, I don't want to deal with my group because I have this group, was to actually assign somebody to be your, like, community, like, your organizer, the person that loves to organize events. And then you, like, talk about it, but get somebody else to do the work of, like, finding the instructor, finding the availability, posting and talking it up, and working together, because you already have a lot of work to do. That if you can bring in one of your community members that loves social outings, like, they would love that job. Like,
I already have a few beautiful people in mind.
And they could even split and say, you know what, in exchange for you doing this role, like organizing one event a month, whether it be online or offline for our community, I will give you a free photo shoot once a quarter or something. I don't know, whatever you decide. But to pay them for their time to do this thing, but also for people that, like, just love social, because I personally am not a social butterfly. So I can organize stuff, but I fucking hate it. This is why I get Beth Olson to do it. But I really hate it. So I looked for somebody that was already kind of doing that outside, where they'd be like, hey, everyone, we're going to the nude beach together. Like, do you want to come? So I'm like, hey, you're in the group. You like to do this stuff. Would you like to do that for me, for the group? And then I just show up. And I get to be there with them doing the thing, but I'm not responsible for the organizational piece of it.
Yeah, I love
but if
that.
you like that piece of it, then go for it. But
that's perfect.
Yeah, and it's good to have a secondary person there, so you don't feel, so then it doesn't become like you feel you have to do it, because it is deeper stuff. A lot of the time, it can get exhausting. So having somebody there to basically you show up, do what you're good at, let them show up and do what they're good at, which is making sure everybody's drinks are filled, or like, you know, the organizational stuff that comes with that, making sure you have enough water, making sure you have enough paper to write down your notes, whatever it is, having an assistant to help you, but somebody that is also very social is super beneficial. It's just, it also helps, I think, make somebody feel better coming into a situation that they are unfamiliar with, to know that there's somebody there that they can go to that's not the boss, or you know what I mean, but somebody that's like them, if that makes sense.
That's awesome.
So that's something else I would recommend there. Anything else? What else?
My brain is exploding right now, and I love it.
What?
My brain is exploding right now, and I love it.
Perfect. Share. What is it exploding with, if you want?
No, I'm just thinking of all of the cool things that we can do, the ways that we can help our community. I really love and care about where I live and how we kind of go about our daily lives. So being able to help kind of help foster and educate that in other people, like, because it's very, if you know any Ohioans, it's all about, well, I tried to move away and I ended up back here kind of thing. It's a very like negative thing to live in Ohio. And honestly, we have a lot of great things. We have a lot of cool stuff. We have tons of great stories and people from Ohio. We have the most astronauts. That's just a little flex. But you know what I mean? Like, Ohio is a great place to be, and there's a lot of cool stuff going on, and there's a lot of cool stuff on the horizon and things changing. So being able to be a little bit Canton proud, Ohio proud, and show other people why, and be able to say, well, because look what we're doing in the community and look how we're changing lives. That's a very cool opportunity and a place that I'm excited to be.
I've been watching Parks and Rec, and I'm like, you're totally the Leslie Knope.
I've been compared to Leslie Knope and Jessica Day. Those are my two most common.
I can see that. Yeah, just like one, but I think that's really really powerful, especially because of the community you want to foster is where you are. Does that make sense? Like, I know there's like some people that they're like, this is my town, but I actually want to travel, or I want to do this stuff. So I think there's something to be said about building a really solid foundation. And here in Manitoba, we have we have fall suppers. I don't know if that's something we do in Ohio, but
what is it?
Okay, so fall suppers, it's not so much now because of restrictions and stuff, but fall suppers were like all the, like, basically the ladies of the church would get together, and every fall, it would be like a big potluck, but all the women of the church would essentially organize like this amazing event, or there'd be like 7 different pies. That's what I remember as a kid. And like, the community would come together in the hall essentially, but all the food would be donated by certain organizations, and it would just be like this big event. And as a kid, I think I underestimated how awesome it was to have that experience, because as an adult in the city, we definitely don't have that here. And that was like a super solid foundation to feel like you belonged. Like, they made sure everyone was included. Like, it was mostly the women that were organizing it, but everyone felt included. Everyone had the same amount of food. Everyone, regardless of where they were. And it was like something you could count on every fall. It was a thing that would happen. Like, you'd always have the best egg salad sandwiches ever.
I love that. That's the memory. That's the piece.
Well, that's the church ladies, right? They always like, you'd have your tuna, your egg, and your chicken salad. That was the 3 main staples on white bread, super white bread. I don't even know how they made egg salad that good. But that's the thing, is like, it was something you could count on. And I think that is the one thing that if you want to dig deep with your people, that's the only thing they need. They need to know that they can count on you, and they can count on that. Does that make sense? And I think just the way that you get so excited talking about your city and where you live is like, it is that. Is like, they know that you have their back. So it will, even if it feels slow right now, that the trickle down effect is happening, it is happening. And I think you need to know that it is happening. And so one thing that I do encourage people that don't think that the impact is like, you don't think maybe the impact is as big as it is, is keep the accolades that you get. Make a Google document. Anytime somebody reaches out, even if they've never shot with you and they're like, oh my God, like I've heard of you from my friends, I just love what you do. Keep that in a Google Doc. Because our brain likes to make us think that we're not doing enough, we're not doing it fast enough, and we're not making a difference.
Yes.
If you spent your whole life and only affected one person, that is enough. Right? And I would assume that everyone watching this, as well as yourself, has done that. Every person that comes into contact with us, we change their lives. Like, without knowing it, we do it sometimes. And so you need to know that you are doing enough. Just that's by, great.
Yeah.
And that's where I think it's important that, going back to the role modeling piece again, every time you talk about your town with pride, that shows somebody else that, yeah, actually, this town is cool.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
It is.
But that's the thing is, like, see, I didn't know you had the most astronauts from, my husband's a big space guy, so I'll go tell him that after this call. You changed me.
Yes.
See? And it'll make his day to know it fun. He probably knows. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. But the thing is, like, that is, while the best thing that we can do as community leaders is act the way that we hope people will see and say, wow, I would love to be like that. And it sounds like you are already doing that. And I don't want you to second guess what you are doing, because I feel that there is an element of that where you don't think that what you're doing is enough.
It's almost, you know, I watched your coaching with Kate, and it's almost that imposter syndrome. Like, when I get something nice, like, oh my gosh, you changed this for me, or, you know, like, you don't know what you're doing for all of us. I'm like, no, it's nothing, that kind of thing. And like, I have that natural desire to like diminish the work that I am trying to do, even though I'm really genuinely trying hard to do it. As soon as I get that like confirmation that I am at least doing some piece of it right, I'm like, no, that can't be it.
I want you to imagine every time somebody says something nice to you, they're like passing you a gift. And so if you say no, you're literally slapping the gift out of their hand.
Like, oh, that's a visual. I feel bad.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, oh, here, I want to give you this thing. And you come along, you're like, no, I don't deserve it. How would that make the giver feel?
Yes. Yeah.
Right? And that's the thing, is we have to understand that in order for it to go around, you need to be equally as good at receiving as you are at giving. This is something I had to teach myself, because I was the same way. I was like, here, take all of me. And then people would be like, here, I want to help you. I'd be like, no, I'm good. I'm okay, thanks. I don't need that.
How'd you get this picture of me?
Right? So this is why I'm hammering this home, which is funny because this wasn't part of your thing, but I'm like, oh, but this is
solid though.
So I think it's important. So every time you go, somebody like sends you a compliment, all you're going to say is, thank you for taking time out of your day to think about me. That's what I do. That's when people send me a random message on Facebook. They're like, oh my God, I love your work. That's all I say is like, you know what? Thank you for taking time out of your day to message me. Like, you took finite time out of your life to tell me I made a difference. That is huge. Like, if you put it in that perspective, instead of saying, no, I don't deserve that. It's like, it doesn't matter about me. I'm thankful for you for doing that. Like, that's so nice of you to do that, you know? So it allows you to kind of give.
Yes. Well, and it's funny because I'm even thinking about, like, so I posted in my group, like, oh, I'm a nervous Nelly, whatever. And all of these women are going, you're going to do so great. You're going to have such a great time, blah, blah, blah. And now I have to go in there and be like, it was fucking awesome. I did a good job, you know?
Yes. And so that brings me to the self high five. So, which I talk about all the time, that we're entrepreneurs. We work by ourselves. Especially now, COVID happens. We can't really see people all the time. So like, when we do something, no matter how small, when you like send an email that you've been procrastinating to send and you finally do it, you say, yes, we did it. and nobody's around,
Yep.
just you. But we can't expect the problem is that if we're not learning to take from ourselves, if we're not like receiving from ourselves, it makes it harder to receive from others. So we also have to be telling ourselves that, yeah, I did that thing.
Oh, that was an aha moment. Thank you.
You're welcome. But it's so, especially in boudoir, this is why I was so passionate about getting into coaching, because I was like, hey, who's helping us? Nobody.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Nobody's helping the givers, though. That's the thing, is we all give so much,
Mm-hmm.
but then over time we become empty shells because we forget how to actually turn that back on ourselves and take the help that's offered. So then when we're saying, like, if you keep brushing off compliments, suddenly you're not going to get compliments, which then feeds confirmation bias of, oh, I knew it, nobody likes me.
Yes.
No, they did. You just refuse to accept their compliments. So that's where it's like, thank you. Choke it down. That's what I tell everyone. Choke down the urge to say, oh no.
I've been made aware of that very thing, because it's like, oh, I loved when you did that. I'm like, oh, it was no big deal. And just like minimize that thing that I, in truth, worked really fucking hard on. So it's time to take some of that back and be like, yeah, I loved doing it. It was a lot of hard work, but I'm glad I did it. Or some, variation of that.
And a lot of this comes from when people have been raised, well, most people have, but where outcome praise is afforded to us.
Mm-hmm.
Like where we're like, if the outcome's good, then you get, yay, good job. Mm-hmm. But nobody cared about the process to get you there. So that turns into imposter syndrome for a lot of us, where it's like, oh no, it was just luck that I'm here. Like, I just got lucky. And it's like, no. So when somebody says like, oh my God, I loved that photo you did, or whatever they say, or that thing you organized, what specifically did you like about it? So I can maybe replicate this in the future. Ooh. You get them to specify what it was. And then that way it reminds you that, yeah, I did spend a lot of time making sure that this tiny detail was really important. That is something that I'm strong at. That's amazing. And that's how we can build up that self-assurance and that confidence, the inner confidence. Like, we're very good at being confident outside, is what I tell people. But our self-worth is like, we're really good at just showing up and doing the stuff. But when it comes to like receiving, it's very difficult because we don't actually think we're worth it, which is bullshit.
Yep.
But you are. So now, after this live, go back in and say, thank you so much for supporting me when I was going on this live. I was really nervous, but here's how I got through it. And I did it. And share the, like, this is how it scared me, but this is why I did it. And this is how it changed, me. So walk them through, because now that's role modeling to them. I was scared of something, but I did do it.
Yes, absolutely.
And so then next time when it comes to do a photo shoot, they'll be like, oh, I'm scared. Oh, wait a minute. Jude was scared. Maybe, but then she did the thing. Maybe I could do the thing. Right? Yes. So it's a trickle down effect. But it happens more by role modeling than it does by us talking at people. So,
in that vein, I do it. This is on topic but off. How do you encourage women who have either fears of not being able to perform in a boudoir session? I would just be too nervous. I wouldn't know what to do. And, of course I'm there, saying like, oh, don't you worry. Selena is my best friend and my studio stylist. So she and I are basically the same person at this point. So everybody knows us together, like, oh, Jude and Selena will take care of you. Don't you worry. And that's what all of my past clients will always jump in and give that like reassurance. But is there something that I personally can do to give them a little bit of that too? I obviously say all the same things, like, don't worry, I pose you from your head to your toe. And then as soon as you feel comfortable, I encourage you to like be yourself. And if something feels right, go for it. But that all kind of sounds like lip service until you're actually there and doing it. So how can I break that line?
Do you do live shoots in your Facebook group?
Yeah. So if I have if I do a model call, I typically ask them if we can do at least part of a live shoot in the group.
Yeah, so I would, if the person's okay with it, is literally sitting down before me like, okay, how you feel right now? Oh, what are your exact fears right now? Oh, that I won't know what to do. I don't know how to make my face look sexy. Da, 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 da. Then you say the same stuff that you say to everyone.
Yeah.
Blah, 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 but then you show it.
Ooh.
And then you show the after effects of the photos. And they say, okay, so now how do you feel now that you've done it? Oh, it was totally different than what I thought. Like in my head, it was like up here, but then when we did it, it just like was so easy.
Yeah.
It's not you saying it. It literally is they're watching the person go from this of like to, you know, which we see all the time. But our clients only see us doing the work, but they never actually hear from a person like verbally in the moment.
Yes.
Like, how do you feel right now? I am fucking terrified. I am fucking terrific. You know, like, terrified to terrific. There you go.
Yeah, when you walk out, like, you know, oh, I look good. You don't see all of the blood, sweat, and I have to pee 6 times before we start because I'm so nervous kind of stuff that you go through to get to that point.
Well, that in itself, that's what you should tell people, what you just said there. Like, you are not the only person that has to pee 7 times before they come in for their photo shoot, just an FYI. This is a total, like, make that an Instagram post. Fun fact. Like, it is a fun fact that, did you know that my average client pees 4 times before they come in for their photo shoot because they're so nervous?
Yes.
Everybody can relate to, like, nervous pees or something everybody has, you know what I mean? And, like, humanize it. It's normal. This is totally normal. You know, again, that's me collecting data. It's like, okay, well, if 7 clients have like peed like 4 times before we did their shoot, then the average would, you know.
It's gonna be a weird one. So, how many times did you pee before you came in today?
Yeah, exactly. Tell me about your nervous bladder. Okay, but like there are common things that like people think that makes them weird, that it's not normal, that they're extraordinary, and that's what I always tell them. Like, you're not a fucking unicorn. Like, no offense, yes, you're delightful and fabulous, but we are more alike than we are different.
Yes.
And the fact of the matter is, most people. In fact, I will usually tell clients, I'm like I do consultations beforehand, and usually I will say, I'm like, okay, at this point during your shoot, that's where all clients, not just some, all clients are like, holy fuck, what do I do? And I'm like, don't worry, I don't expect you to be a professional model. I'm the professional. And so that tells that you can literally see their shoulders go from here to here, because I'm like, I'm the professional photographer, which means I will tell you exactly what to do, but more importantly, I will show you what to do. I will do the pose first so you can see what I'm looking for. And then they're like, oh, okay. So I literally walk them through the process that way. But I think that also helps in just like the verbiage. Like, I always talk about it. I'm like, I have never had a client that walked in my door and was like, take my photo, I look amazing. Never has that happened, ever. This is, if that happened, I probably wouldn't have a job.
You're like, oh.
Right? The thing is, everybody thinks they're going to be the one to break our camera. And like, the only way we can show them that they won't is by doing it. And so that's where I think getting the more testimonials you have from clients or more live shoots that you can do. I know Duluth Boudoir does a really good job. They go live, like this, like part of their thing now. I think almost every shoot they do live in their groups. They've built their community up to be like, to let them go live during the shoot, so people can see always, like, what is this experience like? That is not just a one-off client. It is like every week there is somebody that's like, I was petrified and now I'm amazing. You know what I mean? So yeah, so I think if you could figure out a way to do that, even if, like you say, you do already do like part of their shoot, just like before you start the live, just say, how did you feel when you came in this morning? Like, walk me through your mindset when you came in this morning, and like, now how do you feel? Oh, now I feel amazing. Perfect. Well, we're gonna get into the next set, and you know, but that way it's them explaining, like, yeah, I was scared shitless. Yeah, I didn't show up today.
Well, you know? And it's funny because a lot of times ladies will do a like unveiling of their book or whatever, and I get to see a little bit of the reaction, but I find that as soon as we shut the cameras off, that's when they start sobbing and thanking me and whatever. And no, I'm not like, you should have put yourself out there on the camera. But at the same time, I'm like, man, if people got to see that warm hug, that feeling that we get when people feel that way, like that's the coolest part of my job. And I want other people to understand that, but not at the safety and comfort of my client, you know?
Yeah, so what I did about maybe it was my second year in business or third year in business, I did a model call for like 3 people, like 3 different people. I was like, I don't care what you look like, just like submit and tell me your story, like why this is important to you. That was it. And so then I did that, and I videoed everything from start to finish. I videoed the consultation, I videoed them getting their hair and makeup done, I videoed the shoot, I videoed the reveal. And so that is like always the part where you're like, oh God, like please have an emotional reaction. But the thing is, I think they do anyways, like when you do that, because it's like they know that they're like, oh, I kind of have to, like it amps up the anxiety a bit, so they are going to react more in a way that is like emotional. At least my clients did, but that way I had the reaction of more than just one person to go through and to show. And that's the other thing that that's an expectation I set with clients, to be honest, is I let them know, like, you know what, not every client cries and screams and says they love themselves when they see their photos. To be honest, it's overwhelming for a lot of people. Ooh. And so like I let them know the reality of it is like 2% of my clients are like, oh my God, I fucking love myself, you know. Yes. The other like 98% are like, wow, that's new. Okay. Like they're shocked, and there's like almost like, and so then when we're going through the photos, that's when the tears happen, because like they have to get over that state of overwhelm. Like, what the fuck did I just look at? Like, who is that? Whose bum is that? You know, like their brain goes into a fight, flight, or freeze usually because they're stressed coming in anyway. So, but yeah, I actually set the expectation that they're not. Maybe they won't do that, but it doesn't mean that the photos are bad. It just means that their brain is overwhelmed and more time to process what, like it's a slower process than people think it is.
It's almost the idea that any reaction, even a non-reaction, is valid. It's not, I don't expect you to have this type of reaction. Yeah. I mean, do I secretly love when you're like, oh my God? But yeah.
Yeah, because the thing is, the clients that actually like impacted me the most, well, recently, are the ones that were like, I had a really hard time looking at my photos. I'm like, yes, now the real work begins. But I know on video, maybe that's not super great. But the other thing is the ones that were like, okay, yeah, like I can see kind of like I like it, but there's not a really like a visceral reaction. But a year later, I get a message that says, I looked at my photos every day for a year, and I can tell you it significantly impacts the way that I see my body. That's all I need to know.
Yay.
You know what I mean? Like, it's not the people that are like, oh my God, I look amazing. Fuck, is that me? Like, those are great, but it's also like, I think sometimes those are also the people that expected themselves to look good. Like they didn't need my help as much as the ones that had a harder time accepting their photos. Or they just needed more help to understand why they were reacting the way they were. Or like, it just like, that's where it's important to remove ourselves from it. Like if somebody doesn't scream at our photos, it doesn't mean I did a bad job. Yes. Like I know if you're seeing these fucking photos, they're good photos. That's where my self-confidence comes in. Right? And it's like,
I'm not going to show you something bad. So
like that's counterproductive to why I do my job. So that allows me to step outside of it and say, you know what? I think everybody reacts totally differently. So every react is normal. I want to give you permission to tell me exactly how you feel. Like imagine if you videoed that, you giving that explanation before you showed your client the photos. That I think would go further maybe with your clients that want to go deeper than the clients that are just looking for that visceral reaction of knowing that they're pretty. You know,
I have a very good story that I have permission to share. But I had a client who did a session. We had a really good time. We ended up taking way longer just because we were having like really fun creating, you know, and it was really good. She left. I sent her photos. It was before I did in-person sales. So it was like, here's your package, here's your gallery kind of thing. She messaged me probably about 4 months later and was like, hey, I'm so sorry that I never like gave you a reaction or anything like that. She said, I absolutely loved my photos. It did a lot of good in my life. And something that I didn't share with you then that I want to share with you now is my husband and I had been trying to have a baby for about a year. And just through life circumstances, some depression, whatever, we hadn't been able to conceive. I just wanted to let you know that after getting my photos, that really changed how I looked at myself. And I wanted to know if you were available for newborn photos in September. And I'm sitting here sobbing and I'm like, can I please tell people that that's the most beautiful thing I've ever heard? I want everybody to know that they can change how they see themselves and how they feel about themselves. And she's like, Cheryl. So
see, that's where you show you crying.
Yeah.
Like that's where I would have videoed myself bawling and been like, once you got permission,
yeah,
to be like, this is how impactful this work is.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I need you to understand that I am just as invested in you,
yes,
and the way you feel about yourself is like possibly more than you are, right? Like to have this kind of reaction. But I think, but on that note, I think it is important for us as photographers to recognize, because I know a lot of people are like, oh God, I'm so nervous. They didn't send me anything. They didn't tell me like how, if they liked it or whatever. You are not owed that from your client. And I think that's important. No, I'm not saying you were expecting that, but I think it's just important to note for other people watching it. Once our job is done, we are not responsible for like our clients to build us up. That we are not paying for that service. So no, we cannot expect that from them. If they don't want to say anything to us, that is their right. And it doesn't mean, it's important that we know that it doesn't mean that what we did was wrong or bad or whatever. I think that's really important, because a lot of people are like, oh, they didn't respond and now I'm sitting here worried they didn't like it, which I totally get, because
that is hard. Yeah.
But it's like, but it's not about you. That's the thing, but it's not about you, and that's the main thing there. But yeah, I think like if you always just go on and say, here's why this is impactful for me. The best way that you can thank me for doing your photos is by just looking at them every day to shift the way that you think about yourself. That's all. That is my, this is our, that's why I always tell clients, like, this is our transaction.
Yay.
Yeah, take your photos and you will pay me, of course, but also how you can repay me aside from money by looking at your photos and using them to help you shift the belief systems you have about yourself. You don't have to tell me about it. I just need you to do the work. The end.
That's perfect.
Yeah. And so I think literally like all of it combined is really just like you're already doing it. And I think you just need to know that you are. But just showing up and being as vulnerable as you feel comfortable to, because that is the thing that constantly will give people permission to feel vulnerable, and sharing your passion for your town and your city and your state, and like being super and just like role modeling all of that, and like how can we make our community better? Like we talk all the time about how shitty it is to live here, but what are we doing about it?
Yes.
Like really hammering down on that kind of side of yourself, to say, because that's empowerment, is like you complain that you don't like where you live, yet you live here. So like, what are you doing about it? Like, let us work together to make this an amazing place. It is our responsibility, and use that kind of as the cornerstone of your business, I think. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. I'm so excited.
Yay, good. You have lots of ideas, I think. Is there anything else I can help you with before I let you go today?
No, this was wonderful. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I really appreciate everything that you give, our industry, and you've made a lot of differences in my life and in how I work with clients. So just thank you for that space. And look what I'm going to say. Thank you for taking time out of your day to say that to me. That was perfect. As opposed to, no. Oh, nothing. Yeah, I mean, it's just literally nothing. It's fine. No, it is. Thank
thank you. I appreciate you for recognizing that I do that. And now give yourself a self high five because you did the thing. See, it feels good, right?
Yeah.
Because you did something that scared you today. And that's all that we can ask for is you did something that scared you a little bit.
All right. Now I have to go live in my group and tell them how awesome it was.
Yay, good. All right. Thank you again. And I will talk to you later, my friend.
Right.
Bye.
Thank you, Terry. Take care.
Oh, that was so good. I hope everybody enjoyed that and maybe got some new ideas for how you want to, how you can work to make your group a bit more empowering or to create events or things like that to help your business. But remember that you also have to be worthy of receiving and not just constantly giving, okay? Super important takeaway from today's live coaching. You must learn to receive. We say thank you for taking time out of your day to say that or do that thing for me. I appreciate you. The end. That's all you have to say. That's all you have to say. All right. And on that note, I appreciate all of you for listening, and I will talk to you later. Bye.